Hello and welcome to a new video. In this video I want to discuss Key Vault, specifically for publicly issued certificates. In this day and age there is really no reason why you should publish any application without a certificate to protect it, and it's really easy to do that right now. What I'm going to be discussing as well is how to actually get these certificates for free. You don't have to pay for any of that. All you need to do is just to own your domain that you're going to issue the certificates on. And I'm going to do this completely in Azure. I'm also going to discuss the integration between Key Vault and the rest of the Azure platform. Basically how to make your app services, your application gateways, your CDNs, your front doors, all of these resources, how can they use certificates from Key Vault so that your certificates are centrally saved inside Key Vault, and then everything else just points to that. The benefits are a lot. First, you can control where your certificates are completely inside Key Vault. The other part is that once you renew a certificate in Key Vault, you don't have to run around and renew it in the rest of the services. It does that automatically. With the exception of Azure Front Door, I think, but for the rest of the services, it's just going to reflect automatically there. So you don't need to run around and keep renewing certificates. You just renew inside Key Vault, it reflects everywhere else. So without further ado, I think we're going to go ahead and start with this. Is to actually create our Key Vault and the bot. It's an Azure Functions bot that's going to basically create the certificates for us. And these are Let's Encrypt certificates and bypass certificates. Basically, it works with any ACME compliant server or service. So that's basically what we're going to do here. You can just scroll down here. I'm going to share this link in the description. And you basically deploy the ACMEBot. This template is hosted on GitHub, and it's made by one of our colleagues, which I'm not going to butcher his name. So I'm just going to click here to deploy to Azure. That will bring you up to this page, and I can get started. So now I want to first maybe put it somewhere that's meaningful to me, like a resource group. So I'm just going to call it ACMEBot. And then I choose where I want to host that. I'm going to choose West Europe because that's the closest thing to me. And this is the name prefix. The name prefix is basically where, what do I want to name this bot? And I'm going to call it ACMEBot. I'm going to keep it simple. I think it's going to generate additional, postfix to make this, not collide with anything else. And the email, I'm just going to put my personal email here, and then you choose which authority you want to use. I'm going to use Let's Encrypt. It works. And it asks me here, do I want to create a Key Vault or not? I may have an already existing Key Vault I want to hook up to. And if that's the case, then I set this to false, and it's not going to create a Key Vault for me. Currently, I don't have a Key Vault, so I'm going to ask it to create one for me. Now there is no benefit into dumping everything into the same Key Vault. Key Vault pricing is per access. So, every time something accesses it to get the certificate, this is what you're going to pay for, or to get a key or a secret or whatever. So it doesn't matter how many Key Vaults you have, there is no base price for the Key Vault. So I would encourage you to isolate your Key Vaults as much as possible. It just makes sense. And then in this part here, I'm just going to say true because I wanted to create the Key Vault. I'm also going to show you, well, if you had an existing Key Vault, how would you hook that up? It's pretty simple. And then what's the Key Vault SKU you want? I want the standard SKU. There is no reason to get the premium for this demo. And then click next. Just give it a minute. And create. So that's going to go ahead and create the Key Vault function that's going to generate, the bot that's going to generate the certificates for me and all that good stuff. Once it's done, we're going to come back. And we're back. That took like 3 minutes. So the first thing you want to do after the deployment is complete is I just want to go to the resource group and show you what has been created. it's just a few resources. This is the application insights resource. So this is basically to monitor how your function app is being used. It's not necessary at all. You can remove it later, but I think I'd like to keep the record of how this is being used. This is the function app, and this is the key vault, and this is the app service plan that is hosting the function app, and this is the storage account. It just needs a storage account to put the logs in. I think it's related to the application insights. But right now, this function app that I have is actually accessible to everyone in the world. So the first thing I want to do is actually secure it. And the steps are right here. Like after we've deployed this, you can go down below, and here you'll see how to enable app service authentication onto this. So it's pretty simple. I'm gonna go do the same steps with you now. So I come to this function app, and I want to go to authentication and authorization on the left right here in this blade, and I want to turn this on. The first thing I want to say is I want to log in using Azure Active Directory, and then I want to configure the Azure Active Directory right here. So it's just easier to start with the express mode. That's all you need right now. And I want to create a new app ID. I'm going to leave the name as is. It's going to take the exact same name of my function app and create an app registration with it. There is nothing more that is left to do this. So now I click OK and save. And once I do that, now that's all I need to make my function app, protected with login using this directory. Now, you could have used the login from a different directory by creating an app registration on the other directory and hooking it up from here or whatever. There are many ways that you could have done this, but I've just chosen the easiest way. And just to see what has happened in the background, if you go to Azure Active Directory, and if you go to the app registrations right here, you should find a new app, a new app registration right here that has just been created for this login purposes. Now that basically uses OAuth ID Connect, OpenID Connect login to do all that stuff. Now I can come here, and on my function app, I can try to access the URL, and it should actually open. But before it opens, it should actually prompt me to log in first. And let's just test that this is the case, because the first thing you want to do is make sure this is not available for anyone. And again, here is the thing. Now it's asking me to log in. I'm just going to consent on behalf of my entire organization, because it doesn't matter. My entire organization is me. So there you go. And now the app is running. Now there are a few more things that we need to configure in order to get this running. But before we do, I just want to explain what this is going to do. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to do add certificate in the browser URL. I'm just going to tack this into the path, and now it's bringing me into where am I going to basically deploy or create a new certificate, in which DNS zone. That implies that actually I need to be connected to a specific DNS zone in order for that to happen. Otherwise, it doesn't know, it doesn't have any proof of whether this is whether this belongs to me or not. I can't just, put google.com here and issue new certificates as if I'm Google. I have to prove that actually I am the one who owns this domain. And the reason for, and the way we do that is that you have to have an Azure DNS zone available. So I'm going to go back to the home page, and I'm going to go to a different resource group here. And I'm just going to create a new DNS zone. This is a DNS zone, and we want a public DNS zone, not a private one, because this is a real DNS zone that we're going to use. This is going to be one of my domains that I actually own, and I'm just going to put this here and create. It's not a child zone or anything. I'll just and wait for this to be done, and now this should be taking a few minutes. Now that this is done, we can go ahead with the configuration. I want to go to the resource, and I want to get this DNS zone up and running. So usually, of course, this domain is owned by me, and I have this domain right here in Namecheap, for example. And you can see I already own this domain right here, but what I want to do is I want to basically transfer the name servers of this onto Azure so that I can control this from Azure rather than controlling it from Namecheap. If I wanted to control it from Namecheap, there could be a way to do that, but for now, I'm just going to demo this, and then I'm going to show you what to do if you actually don't want to make any modifications here. So I'm just copying the name servers from here, and I'm going to go to Namecheap. You'll find the exact same thing if you're using something like GoDaddy or, you know, other domain thing. And just FYI, the dot in the end here is important, so you should keep that. And here we have 4 name servers, so I'm just going to copy the entirety of this list and make sure I put it like that and save. And now once I do that, it should take a few minutes to reflect, but I think it usually doesn't take more than 30 minutes until that happens. And that just basically tells Namecheap, hey, if someone's asking any information about this domain, these name servers are the authoritative ones for it. So just forward all requests you get to Azure DNS. And then these record sets are the ones that are going to be used for it. So we can go ahead and start adding record sets. I'm not going to do that yet, but I just wanted to show you what we've done. Now that we have a DNS zone, our function app can finally be configured to select it. The only problem is, well, our function app doesn't actually have permission to do that. So we're going to give it permission to access this DNS zone, and I'm going to just come to the DNS zone and create access control. IAM, click on this part, and I want to grant access to this resource for something. And the role is going to be, I think it was DNS zone contributor, yeah. And well, what am I giving access to? I'm giving access to a function app, and this is the function app I want to give access to. You can see it's selected right here, and I can click save. And that gives the permission of DNS zone contributor to the function app, so that now the function app can actually be able to control this on my behalf. So I don't need to do anything. So now hopefully if I refresh this, just want to make sure that this, yeah, here it's picked up. I think it just took a minute to refresh, but there it is. So now I can go ahead and I can create a new certificate for this, like www.fauzi tag, and add, and this is the certificate I'm gonna create. And we can make it have like multiple names and just submit, and let's see what that does. So right now it should be going to create the certificate from the Let's Encrypt authority, and it will dump the created certificate into Key Vault, and let's hope it works. And it's done. As you can see here, the certificate was successfully issued, so I can click OK. And now let's go to the Key Vault and click Certificates. We want to make sure that the certificates are listed here. It says that I'm unauthorized to view this content. It's just an artifact of this being created for me by template. So I'm just going to go here and give, from access policies. It just neglected to create an access policy for me. So I'm going to add an access policies, and this is going to be for everything. I manage everything, and the principal is going to be me. So I selected my own user, and I can add. Now that I have this, I have to click save. And now if I go back to certificates, I can see the certificate that has been created. And here are all the details about the certificate. So you can see the thumbprint, the current version. And if you click on a specific version, you can see all the different C names as well. SAN names, subject alternative names that it was created with. So everything is working fine. You can download the certificate. You can, do whatever you want with it. The next part we're going to discuss after a while is actually how to use this entry in Key Vault and connect it to different types of applications we have. So we're going to take a look at that soon. Now that we have our certificates created, I just want to also share with you, well, how to renew the certificates. So I'm just going to type here renew certificate, and it's going to ask me which certificate do you want to renew. You can click here and click renew, and that basically renews the certificate manually inside the Key Vault. There's no need for me to do that right now, but just thought you'd know. Also, one thing is that we want to enable is soft delete. The reason we want to enable it as well is that you can't actually integrate Application Gateway, for example. Before you can grab a certificate from here, you have to enable soft delete first and so on. You need to enable soft delete before you can integrate stuff like Application Gateway. So now that I have my setup is complete, I just want to show you a few things about how that works. If you come to the function app and click the configuration tab right here, you can see all the configuration that actually is used to run this application. Here is, for example, you can show the values, the subscription ID where the Azure DNS exists. This is the contact. These things we edited while we created the resource. So I just wanted to show you that what we created is actually dumped here. This is the Vault URL. This is automatically generated and then inserted here from the Application Insights connection string. One part that is also important to mention is like what package is used to run this website from. And it's just the latest package that comes from this GitHub repository. Nothing much to it. The documentation here has more information about, well, what if I don't want to use the Azure DNS? And I want to use my own DNS provider. For example, if you want to use Google DNS, what to do, if you want to use gratis DNS, and if you want to use Cloudflare. So you just, remove this Azure DNS token or subscription ID, and instead put, for example, for Cloudflare, you put a token right here, and there is a procedure where you can get this token from inside Cloudflare and so on. So you can use a bunch of other alternatives, but since they are all alternatives that require you to, modify the name servers of where you purchase a domain, then you might as well just use Azure DNS for it. I'm gonna show you a few resources that we're going to create, and let's see how to protect them using the certificates that we just created. So the first resource I'm going to create is just a web app. The web app is just going to be a basic template. I'm gonna create just test resources right here. It's a and we're gonna call this test resources app.azurewebsites.net. And it's gonna run from a Docker container. I'm gonna choose Linux here. It doesn't matter what I choose, but Linux is fine. And I'm gonna put it in West Europe. And that's gonna create a brand new plan for me. And I'm gonna choose next. Now I choose what I wanna deploy. I'm gonna deploy just a simple Nginx website. Go to monitoring. And I don't wanna enable application insights. I'm just gonna review and create. So it's just a small web app that I'm gonna create to show you how to actually hook it up to Key Vault and grab the certificates from Key Vault. So while that runs, we're gonna take a short break and then come back once it's done. And we're back. That took about a couple of minutes. Now we can go to the resource. All right, so as you can see, this is the website right here. If I click it, we get our welcome to Nginx screen, and that is currently secured by the basically built-in certificate that comes for AzureWebsites.net. Azure is good enough to give us a certificate built in for the app that we created, but it's under a wrong domain name. So if I'm going to use my own domain name, we're going to need to have our own certificate. So I'm just going to copy this URL, and I'm going to go to my DNS, and I'm going to add a record set. Let's see, this is going to be test, and it's going to be a CNAME that points to my other URL, which is this one. And that's going to be good enough to create a CNAME. And now that the record set has been created, we can see it right here. Test.faucitech.com now points to this URL that Azure gave me. And now I can go ahead into custom domains and register my domain. So I'm going to add a custom domain, and the custom domain is test.ausitech.com, and I'm going to validate it. So it did the validation, and it found out that yes, it is pointing to the proper CNAME. If I didn't, then I would have to go and show you, I just did this preemptively because I knew that it was going to ask me for it. And now I'm adding this custom domain to this website. So now that this has been added, as you can see here, it's not secure. And for us to make it secure, we need to add a binding to an SSL certificate. So I'm going to add binding right here. So here it's asking me whether I want to, what custom domain do I want to use? Well, I have registered only one domain, which is this one. And I have an option to upload a PFX certificate and to import an app service certificate. App service certificate is a specific type of certificates in Azure that just links only to app services. I don't want to do that. And I also don't want to upload a PFX certificate because that has no connectivity with Key Vault. So whenever I renew the certificate in Key Vault, it's not going to be automatically renewed here. So instead, I'm going to go to this tab, which is TLS SSL settings. I'm just going to go to private key certificates, and we want to import a Key Vault certificate. So I choose the Key Vault and I choose certificate. Now I need a certificate with the same name as the one that I was running, and I actually don't have that yet. So I'm going to go back here, and in the add certificate, I'm going to choose my domain, and that's going to be test. And that's the domain name I want to generate a certificate for. So I'll add. And once it's added, I should be able to pick it up from the other side. And now it's done. So I can now go back here to this part. Let's just refresh this. Now choose the Key Vault. And here is my certificate. So now I can select this. And now once the Key Vault certificate is imported, I can refresh this, and I can click here to show you all the details of the certificate. And now I can go back to bindings and now add a binding. And the custom domain is this. I already have a certificate with this name, an SNI SSL. This is because we're using a CNAME, not an IP. That will be fine. And now I can add binding. And now this has been bound. So I can also set it HTTPS only, and that just makes sure that I can't access this website using HTTP anymore. And now if I go back to overview, I should find here the domain name with the proper URL. And if I click it, voila, we have this. Now, if I ever renewed the certificate thumbprint on the Key Vault by maybe renewing the certificate or uploading an entirely new one or whatever, then I just don't need to do anything. It's going to pick it up automatically. To show you that, here there is the certificate. And actually, if I click this one, there should be a sync button right here. And that sync button makes sure that the new certificate that I have in Key Vault is reflected here inside the app service. So the next part, after we've done this web app, now we're going to go and show additional integrations with other stuff. So the next thing I want to show off is the Application Gateway integration. So I'm just going to go to the same resource group right here, and I'm going to add a resource. And that's the Application Gateway. Now, we've discussed all the intricacies of Application Gateway in another video. I'm just gonna show this one just for the purposes of certificate integration. So the Application Gateway name is just any name, and we want to put that in West Europe as well. And no auto scaling, just one node is fine. Virtual network. Well, I'm going to create a new virtual network just for the purposes of this. And now the front-end IP addresses, I want just a public IP address. And which backends do I want to connect to? It doesn't really matter which backend. An easy way to do it is just to use the existing backend that we have. So we're going to go to tests backend, and it's going to be an app service, and that's going to be this app service that we previously created. It's as good as any backend I have. And the configuration, now I have a front end and I have a back end. I need a routing rule in the middle, and the routing rule is just acting for the listener. This is the listener details. So the listener name is on this front end IP address. I listen to HTTPS connections and choose certificate from a key vault. And now you have to select a managed identity. So this part we also showed in a previous video. Basically what this means is that, well, Application Gateway doesn't have permissions to get the certificate from Key Vault. We didn't face the same issue with the app service because it just used my own identity to impersonate me and I think get the certificate from there. But for Application Gateway, it's not doing that. I need to actually provide it with a managed identity that it can use. The easy way of doing it is just to go and create an user managed identities, and I'll just add a new identity. So this is a user assigned managed identity, and I'll put it right here. And this is basically just creation of a service account. So I'm gonna call it test app gateway and then just some gibberish after it. Create. This should take just a second. And now that this identity has been created, I'm actually not going to wait for it. It doesn't take that long at all. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna go to the key vault. And similarly to the function app, we also need an access policy for that. Yeah, see, this is what it added for getting the Azure websites for the app. But for this, we have to do it ourselves. So I'm not going to choose a template. The only two permissions we need is a get secret and get certificate. That's the only two things we need. Sorry, we also need list as well, because it's going to ask us to list all the certificates in there. I'm not sure, but I think that this is all we need. We'll see. We'll select the principal. So the principal is the test app gateway, the one that we just created right now. And we save. This is how we give it basically the permission to reach the key vault. But this is not associated with the application gateway yet. So I should be able to choose this. Yes. And now it has access to Key Vault. So I'm choosing the Key Vault and now it's listing the certificates. This is why I told you we also need the list permission. We are going to choose this one, for example. I'm just going to leave it as basic. I don't need to modify anything else. It's asking us what are the backend pools, and I'm going to add a new HTTP setting. And the backend protocol is 443. This is a well-known CA, so I don't need to do anything about it. That's good enough. And now I can go ahead and create the application gateway. So the last thing we're going to integrate with today is Front Door. And Front Door is sort of similar to Application Gateway in the sense that it is a proxy you can use to forward requests to your backend. But at the same time, it's also a web application firewall. It's also a DDoS protection, and it's also a CDN. Basically, you can cache resources into it. So this is the process of front door creation. It's not our concern at the moment, but I'm just gonna go through it since we are here. So here we add the front ends. Of course, we're gonna add our domain, but later we can't do it right now. And then I'm gonna do the backend, and the backend is, well, I can point to my application gateway. I can also point to app service, and the app service is this one that I want to point to and add. Now I've configured my backend, and then I add routing rules, and the routing rules are basically same deal as the one in the application gateway. The accepted protocol is HTTPS, that's going to be fine. and the forwarding protocol is HTTPS only. All that is good. No need to do anything here. Add. And then we're gonna create this front door. And we'll be back when it's done. And we're back. So that took about a minute. So now I'm gonna go to the resource. And well, while I was away, I went to the DNS and we added, I think this is not the correct one. Yeah, we copy this and we want to modify the CNAME to be this one. We modified the record again to be the exact same as the front door URL. Now I can go to the front door designer and now let's add our custom domain to front door. So in here, the custom domain is going to be test.fuzzytech.com. And I want to enable custom domain HTTPS. That means I need to supply a certificate. And I'll use my own certificate. Now we need to add a service principal to allow Azure Front Door to access our key vault to grab the certificate. I've already ran this command before because you only need to run it once for any front door service you have, and that applies to all the other front door services. Because here you're creating a new service principal for this specific application ID, and this application ID here, this GUID, is for Azure Front Door service, regardless of where you are. Now you go to the key vault. Again, while I was off camera, I added the access policy, same as before. So we have an access policy right here for Microsoft.Azure Front Door, and it has all the necessary permissions for this, for the certificate. So I go to the front door back again, and let's add the domain here, test.fuzzytech.com, and it's gonna check that I have access to the domain. That's true. Selecting the certificate. And well, this is certificate version. Now to double check, I wanna double check that this is actually the certificate we're intending, and I'm gonna check on the version. So as opposed to, if you remember when we did the application gateway, we didn't have to do this. Here I have to check the version of the certificate, and I choose the same version right here. In application gateway, we don't have to do this because application gateway hooks up on the certificate object itself. Here we hook up to the secret. It's all the same. Now you can't see the secret. The secret is hidden, but every certificate object right here already has a secret and a key in the background that you cannot see. It's something that you can reach from the command line, but if you just want to need to get the version of it, well, here is the version right here. And there is a secret with the same name, but it's hidden. You can't see it. So here we get the certificate itself, and it's different from Application Gateway in the sense that it is integrated with Key Vault, but not fully. So if you go ahead in Key Vault and change the certificate via like adding a new version, or using the bot that we created to renew the certificate or something like that, it's not going to reflect here automatically inside the Azure Front Door. It doesn't know how to do that yet, but I'm sure it will in the future. But for now, we just have to go ahead and do this. So now we can save those changes. The only problem is that, well, I have my domain here, but I have nothing forwarding from this domain, like listening on this domain and forwarding to the backend. The rule we created initially forwards only from this domain. So once the save is done, I'm gonna have to go ahead to the rules and modify the rule to allow it to get traffic from test.fuzzytech.com. So it's just now grabbing the certificate from there. I don't have to wait for it. I can actually modify the rule at the same time. This is adding a new rule. I don't need to add a new rule. I just need to modify the existing one, and I'm just gonna make sure this is selected as well. And now we update and save. So now that this is done, and now we can go ahead and try. I'll actually start an in-private browsing because I probably have some cookies that are caching this request to a different backend. And there you go. And that concludes the session for this video. I hope you enjoyed it.